again. So let's begin the second podcast, the elements. Now this is a little more conceptual, and so I would urge you to keep that in mind. What is a concept? A concept is the core idea around which you build something. It's the idea of something similar to you build a foundation of a building to build a building. This is what you use to even create the foundation for. Why a new kind of foundation is needed? What are the materials that go into the foundation? What are the chemicals? What are the components that go into building a new kind of foundation that would sustain a new kind of building? So we talk a lot about sustainability of environment, sustainability of economies, sustainability of individual life, and how we can enhance that all over the planet. So this is going to expose some of the old paradigms, old obsolete ones. As we can see, the world has changed now, and what the coming years, and whenever you come across this particular video, you may decide to reflect a little bit more deeply on the concepts presented here and really ponder deeply on this. Whenever we talk about exposing concepts, it goes deeper and deeper. It has layers and layers. Everything, every bullet point that I'm going to mention here has layers and layers and implications and further implications on it. So it's a very deep dive into what is the concept and how do we build something called as a spherical civilization, a sphere. Okay. So we'll take a little bit of conceptual deep dive into collaborative education and research about and why we are doing that. Why we are doing that? Well, to build a spherical civilization. Well, what are the essences of a spherical civilization? What is the concept behind a spherical civilization, right? So let's just get into it. First, we'll start with old systems. As usual, first we got to get rid of the old, dissolve the old to create the new. A vessel can never be occupying anything unless it's already full. First, you need to empty out the vessel to put something new in it. This is something similar and as basic as that. So, okay, let's get on with the second slide. So, what are the old obsolete systems? Let's examine them. Again, these are all very deep, so you've got to examine them one at a time and ponder a lot on them. So the old systems consisted of institutions, governance, laws, and structures. Everything about structure and institutionalization of something. The government had to be institutions, laws had to be institutions, structures had to be established, right up till even the military. Everything had a structure. That's the old system. We'll compare this when we come to the next slide about how this contrasts with the spherical civilization we are going to build. So the old systems were isolated, individualistic. It was about self-preservation. They were tribes. You may call them countries now, but it's still very tribalistic. That's why they are still having militaries and wars going on between countries. Why do you need division and armies to guard some kind of an arbitrary border which Earth never created? It's human created. So these are all human structures. So people wanted to isolate. They wanted to be individualistic. It was all about self-preservation. We want to preserve our race. Let it be white, let it be black, let it be Indian, let it be Chinese, let it be Asian. It was all about self-preservation. The motive was that. The old systems, therefore, were built around insecurity, protectionism, conservative, idealistic, box-based thinking. So box-based thinking is thinking in your own little box. An Asian thinks like an Asian. Well, Chinese thinks like a Chinese. Korean thinks like a Korean. Japanese thinks like a Japanese. American thinks like an American. Indian thinks like an Indian. And Arab thinks like an Arab. So there was all these core ideals behind that which were propagating this. The insecurity, the protectionism, the conservatism, right? Conservationism, all of this were going on. The old systems were linear hierarchy, one cause, one effect models. They were based upon these kind of ideas, concepts. So they were linear, very, very linear. You do this, you get that. They were very hierarchical, top-down approach. To the top person, there's a king or the government or the prime minister, the president or something who rules the rest of the masses. So this very hierarchical, top-down approach. Only one direction. Everything goes from top to down. Nothing ever goes as a feedback. So it is a one cause, one effect model. One cause starts at the top, the effect is carried over to the bottom. The old systems had a master-slave model. They were personalities-based, history-based. That's why we had to keep teaching history all along, because that's the reason why history is taught in all parts of the world. Even now, because you need to preserve this master-slave model. You need to teach that again and again to the next generation. And they were all personalities-based. That means if a person is a better personality, he or she is elected the president, the prime minister, and so people had models to follow, as were taught to the children, that you follow this personality, you follow that personality, this personality is higher than the other one, or so on and so forth. So its history was taught to propagate this master-slave model. Old system had hidden motives and shadow institutions, shadow governments as they call them, or deep state as they call them. All these kinds of things, ideas evolved out of trying to, in an effort to bypass all the above first bullets that we discussed. They didn't want linear models. They didn't want one cause, one effect. The human spirit needed to break away from it. And so they created hidden motives which worked behind the scenes. There's no transparency, right? There's all shadow institutions, shadow government, shadow economy, and so forth. Old systems were based in agreements, contracts, and certification. There has to be something first based in an agreement or in a contract or in a certification in order for you to come into the world and participate. Without an agreement or a contract or a certification, you are nobody. It's like there's no identity given to you to participate with the rest of the civilization. These are old systems. Even now you look for a certification, a degree. If you want a particular job done or a big project done, you sign a contract, you sign, if countries sign agreements. So this is all old system. Yeah. Old systems created, what did they create? They created chaos and mass of individual lives. So individual lives are always in turmoil in the old system for a benefit of very few on the top. It's the same thing we talked about hierarchies. One cause, one effect. The old systems have no regard for life, for consciousness, the balance of the earth and its systems and elementals and life. This is what it ended up destroying everywhere, time and again. Civilizations have come and gone on this earth because of this, because there's no regard for any of these things. Now let's see what the new one. Spherical systems, new paradigms. What would they contrast with? Spherical systems, institutions, governance, law structures rebuilt from ground up, supporting the sphere of life. The first 5 chapters that we spoke of. Everything is rebuilt. Nothing needs to go away. It needs to be completely rebuilt from ground up to support the sphere of life, to support the being in action first, right? Spherical systems, individual and collective, enhanced and supported both ways. So it's not a linear way, it's circular way, spherical way, right? Individual and collective both are enhanced in this, not one way. There's no hierarchy. So spherical systems are more secure, more creationistic. Creation is encouraged. It encompasses the circle of life. It's realistic because it's based in truth, and it's based on spherical thinking. Spherical systems have priorities based approach, not hierarchy based approach. What is the priority now? It shifts. It goes from moment to moment. It's based only on priorities. And it has multiple cause, multiple effect models. Means one cause you take, it has multiple effects. And it leads to multiple causes and it leads to multiple effects. That kind of a model it will be based on. Spherical systems have individual masters and collective enhancement model. What do I mean by this? That means every human being on the planet, every 7 billion of them is an individual master. He's responsible, he or she, for his or her own life, wherever they are. And also for the collective enhancement. That is the circle of life, the earth, all the beings on it, all the earth, soil, air, water. And it is consciousness based and expansion based. This is not recognized at all now, as if the human beings are just animals or machines. Humans have a consciousness. We spoke of that in the first 5 chapters that needs to be recognized. And it is expansion based. It's always expansive, it's always joyous, it's always moving with the human spirit. Again, consciousness needs to be recognized there for that. So, spherical systems have a full transparency of purpose, alignment with the core values of every individual, needs growth and prosperity. Spherical systems are based in alignment with being. Remember the first 5 chapters. Recognition of sovereign uniqueness of every individual and freedoms. It's based on this. Spherical systems benefit the individual in every land. Service by voluntary means only. There's no rule. Everything is provided to the individual, yet they would like to be of service in some way. Every human naturally desires that. Spherical system recognizes and embodies consciousness and balance of earth, individual humans, earth and its systems, elemental life as the primary core objective. This core objective should change first, right? So what has a spherical civilization got to be? So the being in the sphere of life, and how does this affect? This we talk of the humans. Each one of this bunch of 5 circles, the central circle and the 4 outer circles who are surrounding the earth and all the circle of life, sphere of life, are the humans. Each one of these is a human being. These are just 4 humans around the table. Just a depiction. So being has to be aligned with the sphere of life, right? Being is a fractal sphere of the larger sphere of life. Now, what do I mean by this? If you know anything about fractals, they are a micro representation of the macro. The macro is also a fractal. The micro is also a fractal within the macro. And it goes on perpetually ad infinitum, right? So the being, your being, as a human being, you are a fractal of the earth and everything on it. You are a micro representation of the earth itself. So all 7 billion of them are individual earths residing on a macro earth. So that needs to be considered. The true being of earth with true being of one human to another, and humanity creates balance, peace, and individually and collectively. This is the basis of how we achieve the peace that we all desire. So what is collaborative education and research about? So we talked about all the beings, we talked about the circle of life, so we created this sphere. I can't show the sphere here, so I've shown it as a line, a circle, but this is actually a sphere which goes in multiple directions. So I propose these ones. Humanities and consciousness, we need to evolve this field. There's the liberal arts, which is the science of music, humanities, psychology, geometry, music, arts, fine arts, everything, right? Liberal arts. Then there are pure sciences. Sciences just for the sake of developing new knowledge. Pure science can be in any field, physics, chemistry, biology, and so on and so forth, geology, everything. There are the applied sciences, the engineering, the medicine, the psychiatry, the medical profession, everything. The applied sciences, where you apply it to the physical world. Then there is the science of economics, the science of goods, movement of goods and trades and services, logistics, which we need to have for goods and services to travel freely across the globe. That's the science of economics. All of these outer 5 have to evolve towards this direction through the human being, which comes down to the earth as the center and all the life forms on it, including humans and countries, including elementals, including all flora and fauna. The fields of human study aligned with the spheres of being and sphere of life. These are the way it works. This is how it all comes together. Each one of these is a sphere. Overlapping spheres. You can take part in all of them multilaterally. All studies aligned with all fractals of all spheres, right? Each one of this is a fractal aligned with one another, and that's how we build and constantly expand and find joy in living. Beings through action feed from the studies and align with the spheres of life. So all of these have to be studied collectively, collaboratively, and then align it with the spheres of life so that we can participate collectively together. So I don't know whether this thing is taking or not. Something is happening with the recording today. Okay, the final word, I'll leave you with these truths. This is what we should be building around. This is what we should be aiming towards with all these bullets. The idea is to have a heart-centered consciousness in all forms of knowledge that we evolve. And implementation of any idea should be around hearts. Should give allowance to one another. Should be around compassion, around beauty, around knowledge, around balance, around understanding. These are what we are. These are what we are built of. So this is what we should aim. That's the concept. I know it's a loaded and it's very short, so take time. Ponder over it. Thank you for listening.